And now political reporter Sean Graff has a special interview with NBC political analyst Chuck Todd.
Okay, joining me today is NBC News political director, chief White House correspondent, and host of the Daily Rundown on MSNBC, Chuck Todd. I don't know when you have a time to possibly sleep. It amazes me.
Well, by the advice I always give, I go to bed a lot earlier than people realize, and you basically, you don't partake in what most college kids partake in these days.
Okay, yeah, I see. So an important issue to students at University of Chicago is immigration reform, and I know that's been particularly working on right now in the Senate, but Harry Reid this past week announced basically that he wasn't really sure if anything was going to be brought together. What do you think are the prospects of this legislation or something getting passed?
I will be stunned if it's not. And the way big deals happen in Washington is when both sides, members of Congress don't do things for the greater good. They do things for their own personal gain. And the fact of the matter is the Republican Party needs it to happen and the Democratic Party needs it to happen. This is a case where the political needs align. And so this is going to happen. The question is it a signing ceremony on July 4th at the Statue of Liberty? Is it some grand, is it a little painful? Are there moments, will there be moments where you don't think it's going to get done? Sure, it's going to get done. I will be stunned. And if it's not, it shows you how broken Congress really is. This is the easiest issue that Washington is dealing with right now, with the most, where you see that a solution is in sight.
So then another important issue is clearly the agreement is not there, is on gun control yet. Right. And so the question is, we have the assault weapons ban and we have the universal background check. So there seems to be much more support for the universal background checks. But what do we think there's going to be any progress on assault weapons ban or no? I
would no. And in fact, I think there's some Democrats. There's not. You couldn't get a majority in the U.S. Senate today. There are 55 Democrats. You couldn't find 50 votes for an assault weapons ban. I think maybe you could get 45 votes for assault weapons ban. So I don't believe that the possibility of that, and that is there's bipartisan opposition to assault weapons ban. The universal background checks has a chance, but I'm skeptical that it can get through the House. I just think it depends on what it looks like. There's certainly been some plenty of Senate Republicans that have shown some openness to this. I think it has a chance. But I would say 50-50 at best that we'll see universal background checks. Okay. Maybe something that gets, but the only thing that's possible is on the background checks, mental health, things like that.
And now going back to what you started with was just the lack of compromise and the unwillingness to come together in Washington to create reform. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on Eric Cantor. He's going to come on Meet the Press, I believe, this weekend to talk about reform and what he's doing to push the party forward. But on Morning Joe this morning, he seemed to issue it more as like a rebranding effort and not really changing any policies. What do you make of that?
I think, look, the Republican Party is trying, this is what happens when political parties lose an election, particularly one that they thought they had a chance to win. They're trying to look inward, and I think that the party still hasn't figured out what does it want to be as a governing party. Now, the House Republicans want to prove that they can govern. There are other parts of the Republican Party that are trying to stop the Obama agenda. Those two things actually goals can collide, because if House Republicans want to try to do some governing, well, they have to work with the Democratic Senate and the Democratic President. And there are the leader, I think Eric Cantor and John Boehner, I think they know that at some point they have to start delivering. There are other parts of the Republican, whoa. We're up against an ideological fight against a progressive Democratic president. We've got to try to take that on. And I think the party's got to figure out what it wants, what its goals are. I think that you will see some movements, but not until, I think it's still having this internal struggle. So I think this is going to be a good year-long process. It may be a 2-year-long process. It may be a 5-year-long process. Democratic Party, after the '84 wipeout from Reagan to Mondale, thought it was going to get its act together, thought they could rebrand themselves, came really close and lost again. It took a second loss for them before they could figure it out and sort of break their addiction to special interest groups, and I think the Republican Party also has to figure that out. What is its relationship with its special interest groups? And
finally, for someone who's been reporting on politics for their entire career, how do you not become disillusioned by the process? Or do you ever become disillusioned by the process?
I'll admit that I have become there are times when I've become a little disillusioned in Washington, I think. But my disillusionment, frankly, is more with the press. I think that we are doing a terrible job of demonizing, of helping. Look, I think that political parties participate in this. I think they use us in the press, and I think that the vote. There's too many activists that only see things through the prism of red and blue. They go on Twitter and they only follow people that they agree with, or they only. And I think that this is sort of all of it is an ingredient to the problem that's in Washington. That said, this too shall pass. And, if you're at all a history buff and a political junkie and you throw the two together, you know that we've been through these periods before. So I'm still somewhat optimistic, because I always say this: 95% of the people that I have met that have won election to office in Washington, D.C. have gone there for the right reason. Maybe they're ideologically, but there is, I always say this, there's good in them. And the question is, how much do they allow the politics of the moment to sap them of their potential greater good? And that's, we're in one of those tough periods.
Thank you for coming to University of Chicago.
All right.